Story 1. The best bag of chips I ever had in my life was when I accidentally opened it upside down. Since then, I have opened every bag of chips bottoms up. Story 2. Never look behind you after turning off the lights in the basement. Just hurry up the stairs as fast as you can. Story 3. When I meet people, I do not use profanity in front of them until they use it in front of me first. Then I feel it is acceptable. Story 4. If I find a penny on the ground but it is not heads up, I turn it heads up so the next person can have a little luck. Story 5. Never take the top paper plate or cup from a stack. You have no idea what hands touched it. Take one from the middle. Story 6. The last bite of food should be the perfect combination of all the ingredients. This is especially important for pizza, where I eat the crust second to last and rearrange toppings to create the ideal final bite, as well as for salads. Wraps can be challenging because, without planning, I often end up with just lettuce and watery mayonnaise folded in the last bite. This is unacceptable. Story 7. Do not make up a lie, such as saying my grandmother is sick, to avoid doing something you do not want to do. I am afraid it might actually happen if I lie about it. Story 8. Always put your valuable items in the same spot, so you will never lose them. Wallet, phone, and keys. Story 9. If a loved one goes to the hospital, they receive a stuffed animal. This idea comes from a sister whose daughter was in the neonatal intensive care unit when she was born, and the number of children who had no loved ones to care for them broke my heart. So that Christmas, every single baby in the NICU received a stuffed animal. Since then, it's been known as my law. I have bought many stuffed animals in the last 35 years. I still have the one I got for my father the last time he was in the hospital, the visit he never came home from. Story 10. Future me. No matter what decision I am faced with in the moment, I do the extra work for the future me. I always forget about it. Then, someday in the future, I'm involved in something similar. I go to complete the task, and there are all my tools set up perfectly by past me. I love it. Story 11. I wish I still followed this rule. When I was younger, I had a practice that whenever I entered my bedroom, I would do 20 push-ups. Some days I completed over 100, other days I only managed 40, but at least I was going up the stairs and doing a few push-ups. Story 12. If I wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom or get water, I will not look at the time because it makes me anxious and I struggle to go back to sleep. I do not open my eyes when falling asleep after I yawn for the first time. It is clear that I have long-term issues with getting enough sleep. Story 13. If there are two switches that control a light, there must be a designated default switch. The switch must always reflect the true status of the light. Up is on, down is off. I will never use the second switch because that would make the default switch incorrect. If my children use the second switch, I have to go back and correct it. Story 14. Always know where the closest exit is in case you have to run. Watch the entrances and be aware of what you can hide behind. Story 15. When traveling, I never eat at a restaurant that can be found in my hometown. I always choose local options. Going to a McDonald's in India or China counts as going local because their menu is different from here. I just mean I won't travel from the United States to Italy or Turkey to get a Whopper or go to Denny's. I also do this when traveling between states or in cities outside my usual drive. Story 16. Each armpit receives the same amount of deodorant. If one gets 3 swipes and the other inadvertently gets 4, I apply one more swipe to the first one. Story 17. If a light stays green for an improbably long time and I make it through, I must nod to and thank the light or it will not happen again. Story 18. When I perform a random act of kindness, if I tell someone else about it or seek attention for it, it cancels any good karma I could have received. Story 19. Years ago, a little 4-year-old me was told that I swam like a fish. I made the decision that all fish were my family, and I couldn't eat my family. To this day, I still don't eat fish. Story 20. Always keep a light on so I can find my way home. I read this in a novel a long time ago. The tradition was that if a spirit was wrongfully killed, keeping a light on in the home would help the spirit find its way back home and find peace. So, I always keep at least one light on in the house, 24/7. Story 21. Not a rule I made up, but my parents did. Try at least 3 bites of something before deciding you do not like it. I credit this with helping me come to terms with different food textures and flavors and for getting me to eat my vegetables. I may not like cauliflower, but I will eat some anyway to perhaps continue training my palate or trick it into liking it. So far, it has not worked. Story 22. If I found my mind wandering and thinking about something random, I would try to trace my thought process back to how I got there. It took me until I was an adult to understand, but I believe I was developing ways to manage my undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and potential autism. This awareness helped me significantly while studying or in class during my childhood. Story 23. In-store shopping, I never pick the first item available. I always choose one from the back. It makes sense to me. I just think it might be fresher or less handled. Story 24. If I have candy at a movie theater, I do not open it until the movie starts. I will not open it during the previews. Story 25. Any money in my wallet must be arranged face up, from smallest to largest. If one is face down, I feel like it is drowning or cannot breathe. Story 26. You must replace the toilet roll on the holder, specifically over, not under, even when at a guest's house. Story 27. You can never have too many pens or pencils. Throughout middle school and college, I would keep a handful of them in my pocket because there was always someone who needed one. Even now, I probably have enough pens and pencils to last me 5 years or more. Story 28. Do not wear the same color shirt and pants. For example, if I wear a gray shirt, all my gray pants are off limits for the day. Story 29. If I step on a crack with one foot, my other foot must also step on a crack. One foot cannot have more cracks than the other. This becomes complicated when walking on tile or brick. Story 30. The thermostat and volume of any device must be set to even numbers. The only exception is that I will set the thermostat to 69 because I find it humorous. Story 31. When I was a child, I created a peculiar rule that I would never step on cracks in the sidewalk if I was wearing new shoes. I imagined that it would ruin the appearance of my new footwear. Embarrassingly, I still find myself doing this little sidewalk dance when I'm wearing brand new shoes, even though I know it's completely ridiculous. Story 32. I always say thank you to machines when they complete a task, like when the printer prints, my computer downloads a game, or when we got my car unstuck from the ice. I even thank my digital assistant when I ask it a question. Logically, I know they are not sentient, but it's better to err on the side of caution. I wouldn't want to hurt their feelings. Story 33. It has become a habit for me to always have a blanket wrapped around my upper body while sleeping. I decided to do this one night when I was 5 years old, and I have continued to do it every night since. Even during hot summer nights, I need something around my shoulders or head. Otherwise, I cannot sleep unless I am truly exhausted. Story 34. Never cross out a square on the calendar until the day is done. It is acceptable to do it when leaving work. There is no need to wait for midnight. Story 35. I have to ensure my 2 teddy bears, which I have had since the day I was born, are on my side of the bed. I am 41 years old. My sister does the same with her toy from birth. Story 36. I listen to Hoku's Perfect Day every morning on my birthday. I've only skipped it twice since I was a child and felt strange both days. Story 37. No purple eyeshadow. I wore purple eyeshadow the day my first boyfriend broke up with me. I can't bring myself to wear it again. I'm convinced it's bad luck. Story 38. Whenever it snows, you have to taste the snow by catching a snowflake on your tongue or grabbing a little fresh powder off the top of a railing or fence post. Story 39. Whenever I walk through a space, every corner seems to emit a laser beam. I either can't step on a laser beam or I must step on one with each step, depending on my mood. Story 40. Pray for roadkill. I am agnostic, but whenever I see something dead by the side of the road, I say a quick prayer for peace for them and their distraught owners. It has become a habit, but it is silent and in my head, and it does no harm. Perhaps it even does some good. Story 41. I never wish death on anyone. I had a difficult time dealing with my grandmother's passing, and death affects more than just those it is wished upon. That being said, there are individuals whose negative impact on the world is so significant that their absence could be beneficial for many. It is challenging not to feel that way, but I still believe it is wrong. Story 42. I need to be in bed before 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. No matter what else I have to do, I cannot be awake after 10. Story 43. When I sleep on my side, I must ensure to flatten my ear on the pillow to prevent it from sticking out as I age. Story 44. I count the number of strokes on each section of my teeth while brushing them. I do 8 up and down motions per section, unless my teeth feel gritty. Cannot stop. If I buy a large bag of chips and eat all of them in one sitting, except for a handful at the bottom of the bag, then I have practiced self-control. Story 45. If I am celebrating your birthday with you, there will be cake or some kind of dessert. I must also have cake on my birthday. Story 46. I don't care which city I'm in or how safe I feel. Being born and raised in Houston taught me to never leave anything valuable in your car, even if you are just running into the store for 5 minutes. Story 47. No reading 2 or more books at the same time, even if they are in different series or by different authors. Story 48. I read as a child that credit is a burden on the unwise. More than anything, it manifests as a self-imposed check mechanism. See something, want it, save for it, decide I don't need it equals savings. Story 49. I have to count the steps whenever I go up or down stairs, or something bad will happen to me. Silly, but I still do it to this day. Story 50. Being secretive about my bank card's PIN is pointless if someone can read my mind. I never believed in mind reading, nor do I now, but this thought just randomly occurred to me one day when I was withdrawing from an ATM with my new bank card. Just for fun, I started thinking of my old card's PIN while entering my new one. It has been almost 20 years, and I am still doing it to this day. It's such a habit that I only enter my number by muscle memory alone. If you were to ask me my current PIN, I would actually have to think hard about it for a moment before I could answer correctly. Story 51. I say the Lord's Prayer twice during takeoff and twice during landing. I am not Catholic and never have been. Story 52. I always take the second drink in line at the store. I hope fewer people have touched it. Story 53. Do not make promises when you are in an extremely good mood, and do not make decisions when you are in an extremely bad mood. Story 54. I prioritize putting on clothing in case of an emergency requiring immediate exit. For example, I put on underwear first because it allows me to cover my chest more easily. Next, I put on a bra to ensure my intimates are covered. Then, I wear pants for easier movement. Finally, I put on a shirt. I clearly have anxiety. Story 55. Do not express anger aggressively towards anyone with more power than you unless it is absolutely necessary to protect yourself. I have mastered the art of subtly instructing people that their behavior is inappropriate and how to improve it. It is still useful. People may not care if you get angry at their behavior. However, if they think they might have acted inappropriately, it increases the likelihood you'll get what you want. Story 56. I always finish my water no matter what. When I was a child, I was deeply impacted by learning that there are people who either do not have access to water or have very contaminated water. I made a promise to myself that I would never waste water again. I still maintain that same mindset, but it has mostly become a habit these days. Story 57. My parents used to bother me with annoying questions, so I made a rule: no, why not? Questions. Decades later, it still makes sense to me. Story 58. When I was younger, I would walk to school. I always tried to beat a car to a specific spot. For example, if I heard a car behind me, I would think, make it to the oak tree before the car does. I would also try to complete a task and return to the microwave before it hit 0. I would do things like run a lap around the house or pour a glass of milk and make it back to touch the microwave before it went off. I rarely do these things now, but when the thought crosses my mind, I give it a shot for old time's sake. Story 59. I always eat in front of the television and I never start until I am seated, comfortable, have a drink nearby, and any condiments I need. Only then can the show begin. Nothing enjoyable can start until all the necessary chores, like cleaning up and washing my hair, have been completed. I always work through lunch. Color is everything. Story 60. I'm out of toilet paper if there are less than a dozen rolls left. I visited a friend's house and they didn't have any toilet paper. I had to use a paper towel. I vowed I would never run out of toilet paper again. I even keep a couple of rolls in my desk at work. It paid off during the 2020 toilet paper shortage. Stores were out of stock, but I never ran out. I already had a 6 to 8 month supply. Story 61. Foods on my plate cannot touch each other unless they are meant to touch each other. I can dip my garlic bread in the marinara, but I strongly disapprove of mixing corn into mashed potatoes. Story 62. Boycotting food delivery services. If I want takeout that badly, I can drive to get it. If I'm not sober, I can cook. Story 63. If I am leaving a room or doing things around the house, I always bring my drink back to the kitchen. Also, if I am leaving the room for any period longer than a few minutes, I put anything breakable away, including my computer and instruments. I grew up in a very busy household, and if you left anything out, there was a high chance it would get broken or a drink would be spilled. There are no young children running around my house, and my roommate does not go into my room, so I guess there is really no reason to be that strict now, but I just can't help it. Story 64. When I eat, depending on the food, I need to take a small bite of everything to fully enjoy the combination of flavors. I also have to finish the plate or bowl with one last bite of everything, or it feels bland to me. Story 65. I always engage my parking brake when I park. It doesn't matter if it's on flat ground or not. The driveway at my parents' house is very steep, so we always use the parking brake. Now I do it out of habit. Story 66. Sneeze as loud as I can every time. A friend and I made a deal back in primary school to do it, and I have never not done it since. It drives my boyfriend insane. I should ask that friend if she even remembers it or if I've been doing it alone all these years. I also have no idea how people sneeze quietly. I just can't seem to understand going about it differently than I do. Story 67. If I am at a store for non-essential goods, such as clothing or trinkets that I could absolutely live without, I will only go to the register to make a purchase if I can find 2 items in the store, either 2 of the same item or 2 different items that I want to buy. If I only find 1 item I like, I will put that item back on the shelf. I believe I picked up this habit years ago as a young adult from my local TJ Maxx because the checkout line can get very long. Buying 2 items makes it worth the wait, but purchasing only 1 item does not justify the wait. Now, I naturally apply this rule when on trips or going out locally to window shop. Story 68. I write numbers like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of 1. I don't remember why I write numbers in this way, as I have been doing it since I was in 1st grade. Story 69. If I walk into a bathroom and hear another stall opening, I quickly move into a stall before the person comes out. I have been doing this since I was about 4 years old, and I have no idea why the thought of someone seeing me in the bathroom makes me anxious. If they are already out of the stall, I am completely relaxed, even if they follow me into the room. However, if they are behind the door and suddenly open it, I feel the need to escape quickly. Story 70. I can't start a new book until I finish the one I'm currently reading. Initially, I didn't think this was an odd rule. It seemed like common sense. However, I've come to realize that most people do not follow it. How can you start another story when you haven't finished the last one? How? Story 71. I watched Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan and was startled when Khan placed that strange bug in Chekhov's ear. To this day, I have to sleep with the covers over my ear because I worry that a bug might crawl inside. Story 72. This may seem obvious, but I always try to be there for someone's birthday event, even if it's unexpected or if we aren't very close. It's a day when being absent might go unnoticed, but being present can mean so much. Story 73. If I am going to have a pajama day at home, I change out of the pajamas I slept in into different ones. I will rewear them, but there will be a pair of daytime pajamas and nighttime pajamas. Story 74. I don't sleep with a leg out of the covers. Both legs are under the covers at all times because of monsters. Story 75. Every "What's new?" receives a good, and every "How are you?" receives a "not much. I just can't help it." Story 76. I avoid butter unless I am baking, and it is absolutely essential. When I was young, my parents got divorced, and my mother became involved with an overweight individual who used excessive profanity and slathered enormous amounts of butter on everything. He consumed about 2 sticks of butter a day. The very first time I encountered this person, I silently vowed to myself, I will not end up like that. Story 77. When I was young, I read somewhere that Romans would always enter or leave a place starting with their right foot. I adapted this to stairs, so I have to step on my right foot when I finish using a set of stairs. It got to the point where I switch feet mid-walk if I sense I'm not landing on my right foot upon arrival, or I remember which foot to start with if it's a staircase I use often. My ex-husband would make fun of me endlessly because of that. Story 78. Dessert is the last thing I eat. I don't have a cookie, then go have some chips. Like a savage. Dinner and dessert are done, unless it's more dessert. Story 79. I slow down when I am driving if a bird flies in front of my car. I tell myself it is trying to warn me there might be danger ahead. Story 80. I try never to lie. Lying can be convenient, but even if it seems easier than telling the truth, I do my best to avoid it, with very few exceptions. However, I often exaggerate for comedic purposes, but I always follow up with the truth after getting a good laugh or creating humor. Story 81. Not a strange law or rule, but a peculiar habit I have. When I was a child, I learned that sonar works by sending out a ping, which bounces off an object, such as the ocean floor. The length of time it takes for the ping to return determines the depth. So, I started making pinging sounds aloud to myself to see how deep I could conceptualize the ocean. The longest I've continued this is 3 years. It's enjoyable for me because I forget. And when I remember, I think, ping, wow, that's a deep ocean. Story 82. I have my car clock set 5 minutes fast so that I always think I'm going to be late and avoid dawdling, but I end up being early. Story 83. This may sound foolish and I have been mocked before, but I do not care. If my dogs take a disliking to a person, chances are there is a good reason behind it. I trust my dogs more than most humans. Story 84. The left shoe goes on before the right shoe every single time. Every few years, I make an honest effort to put the right shoe on first, but it just feels wrong. After a few steps, I have to take my shoes off and put them on again in the correct order. I am 55 years old. Story 85. I always wear 2 different colored socks. Matching socks, at this point, just make me uncomfortable for some reason. Story 86. When I am done with a disposable wrapper, such as a chip bag or candy wrapper, I always fold it over several times to create a long strip and then tie it in a knot. I have convinced myself that I will have bad luck if I do not do this. Story 87. As a 9-year-old girl, my mom made me have a pageboy bob that curled under. I hated it and swore I would never cut my hair above my shoulders again. 50 years later, I have kept that promise. Story 88. I save the best for last when I eat. I will enjoy a bit of everything throughout the meal, but my last bite must be the best item on my plate. Story 89. I live in an old house with many non-functional light switches. If I accidentally flip a switch that doesn't work, I must flip it back, just in case it actually does something. For example, I might have just turned off Jerry Mouse's lighting for his sardine bed. You never know. Story 90. When eating chicken noodle soup, you should eat the noodles first, then the chicken, and finally the broth. Failure to comply results in immediate consequences. Story 91. If I am buying a gift for a child's birthday party, I choose books every single time. I do not care if they love reading or not. Every child benefits from having more books available to them. This rule also applies to baby showers, in addition to a gift from the registry. Story 92. I created a secret code to prove my identity to my younger self in a time travel situation. I often think about that code, as if I might actually need it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.